Hey everyone, Christian here, and I wanted to do a little three-part series on three magical islands that exist in the world for palms. When I say magical islands, I mean that they are not that large an island. They tend to be around the Tropic of Cancer or Capricorn, and they have a great diversity that is unseen in even many continents. And most of the palms that grow there are endemic. So the first island I'm going to do or going to discuss is Cuba. So as many Americans know, Cuba lies off the coast of Florida. It's kind of an enigma, sort of. No one really knows a whole lot about Cuba. They know that there's a not the easiest government to work with in place, especially for Americans. I'm not going to get into the politics of it, but it's a lot harder for Americans to get and do things in Cuba than it is for, like, say, Europeans or people from other parts of the world. And that has kind of made it a more interesting place for Americans to try and go and collect these palms that do grow there. So where Florida has about a dozen native species, Cuba has several hundred, and they are all they seem to all have this desire factor to them that is explainable, but some parts of it are unexplainable. So some of these palms, I want to be brutally honest, are like really ugly, but because they're from Cuba and they're different, they're desirable. I mean, I desire them. For example, there's one palm. It's called Copal Thrinax wrightii. So that's Copal, Colpo, Thrinax wrightii, and it is this closest relation is actually Pritchardia. So it used to be called Pritchardia wrightii maybe 100 years ago, and it is a palmate palm. It has this big belly in the middle. It's hard to grow. It's slow, and it's not really. It's just interesting. It has this weird shape, and you just want to try it out because it's different. There's people who collect cars, want to have the weird cars that maybe aren't even that fast or reliable, but their style is interesting. So the same thing kind of goes for palms. People want to collect what is different and what they don't have. And that's what Cuba offers. Different stuff that no one has, or that people usually tend not to have. You have, for example, you have the massive coperniches. You have Coco Thrinax that have really thick, webby fibers that are like as thick as my fingers, kind of rolling around the trunk with like blue rigid leaves or silver undersides, or not very deeply segmented leaves. And the Copal Thrinax, like I mentioned, as well as some rare species of royals that are a little bit smaller than the big royals that we know of. So all of this weird diversity is the main attraction for the palms in Cuba. So you really have to. They all exhibit some sort of oddity that attracts the collector to make the plant desirable, so to speak. So basically the hard part about growing palms from Cuba is not that they're cold sensitive, because most of them are actually relatively cold hardy. And I'm going to discuss something that I don't think I have before, but I believe it was the botanist John Dow from Australia. I could be wrong, but I'm pretty sure that said if a palm has resistance to one sort of duress, such as drought, wind, cold, salt, that it should also be pretty good in some other of those conditions. So if a palm is drought hardy, say, for example, Serenoa in Florida, or let's just say palmetto for ease, because palmettos sometimes don't get rain for a month at a time, that they tend to also be cold hardy. Now they do grow in the subtropics, but let's take, for example, some of the Cuban palms. Coperniches, for the most part in Cuba, are more cold hardy than coperniches in any other part. For example, in Hispaniola, where there's a more tropical climate, or I should say, more of a rainforest style climate, for, say, Copernicia berturiana, which grows in the Dominican Republic, it's really cold sensitive. But Copernicia baileyana, Copernicia fallens, rigida, gigas, all those palms can withstand upper 20s. They can handle frost, and a lot of it just has to do with the genetics and stature of the leaves in the trunk. if you go up to a palm and you can grab a leaflet and just like smash it like this and it doesn't break anything, or you can, push against a leaflet and it just doesn't want to move, or it's very leathery, waxy, it's usually going to be cold hardy plant because it can withstand frost coming in and bursting the cells in the inside of the leaflets. So as a result, all these palms can kind of grow in these warmer subtropical climates. So that's why you can see coperniches in places like Miami, Orlando, Tampa, even out in California. A lot of them can handle those Mediterranean climates as well. So same goes for a lot of the Cocothrinax. Really the only ones that can be seen as cold sensitive are the ones that grow in the rainforest climate, such as the rare royals. I don't know how cold sensitive they are because I haven't really exposed any of them to it, except for one species, Roystonia violacea. It seems to do fine, but it does grow in the rainforest climates. But another thing that Cuban palms have that is unique is that most of them grow in serpentine soil. So serpentine soil is usually soil that's toxic to most plants. Not a lot of plants, period, will grow in this soil, but these Cuban palms seem to pop out from like just the barren land and seem to enjoy it thoroughly. So these soils are high in iron, nickel, cobalt, and cadmium, which, as you know, are pretty toxic metals. Like if you were to ingest them, as a human. So this reddish sort of dirty soil, it's almost like you think it's like naturally contaminated, so to speak. It's almost so that these palms decided to grow there because they knew that, or adapted to it because they knew they wouldn't have any competition from other plants that couldn't survive. So the hard part about that is that to try and reciprocate those soils in Florida or elsewhere is quite hard because it's hard to get a hold of. I've heard of stories of people trying to use like shavings of a battery, like a nickel cadmium battery, or just whatever has nickel or cadmium in it, and adding it to the soil. I don't think that's going to do anything. But the best way to kind of grow these palms is to use a very sterile, pH neutral soil for the most part. So you can kind of grow it in a controlled environment, at least until it gets a little bit older. That's kind of like the best way to start it off. From there on, you kind of have to make something that represents or is resemblant of the serpentine soils in Cuba. So some of the palms that's from serpentine soils grow just fine, such as the old man palm. It's from a serpentine soil, but it grows here perfectly fine. It tends to prefer sandy soil, which is usually neutral, limestone rock, a little bit alkaline, and but they do great in Miami. They do great over here, and they have adapted to both types of soils. So the allure for Cuba is probably greater than for Americans than it is, like I said, for other Westerners or people from, say, Asia or Australia, because of our checkered past with Cuba. So that makes it all the more alluring to go to Cuba and collect these things, or to collect these palms from Cuba. So to add to that, in my other vlog, I mentioned that Paul Kraft came out with the book, The Palms of Cuba, which, by the way, if you go on Amazon right now, there's a $5 off coupon. I don't know how much it is. It's somewhere around $35, $40, but $5 off, that amount is pretty good. It's got a ton of information. Paul's a great writer. He's done a ton of research on Cuba. He's gone there, I don't know how many times. Saw him about a year ago, and he's always worth talking. He always has some great stories, I should say. So, I highly recommend that book. I actually don't even own it, but I recommend it. So I probably should get it for Christmas for myself. So that's going to probably be it for Cuba. I wish I could go into further about like different areas. I don't want to make this a half an hour vlog, but a lot of it can be political because of Americans' past with Cuba, and a lot of what's happened to the palms and where they go, or where how we have gotten to them, is based off of political issues. So I don't really want to get too much into that. I'd rather just talk about the palms. But if you have any more questions about Cuban palms, about the island of Cuba, about what grows there, that sort of thing, leave it down below. If you're new to the channel, go ahead and subscribe. I'm going to have a lot more information on palms. A lot more palm reviews are going to be coming up once I get to more gardens that have different palms than what I have. And if you enjoyed the video, give it a thumbs up. And if you also you want to get notifications when I put up new videos, which I do pretty regularly, hit that bell next to the subscribe button. I think that gives you like an instant notification. It does for me when I subscribe to other videos that I watch, or other channels I should say that I watch. And yeah, thanks for watching. I hope you enjoyed it. If you have any, like I said, if you have any questions, leave them down below. And I know people have asked for a lot of requests on videos. I'll try and get to those. Some I haven't been able to do for certain reasons, or just things are unavailable. Or for example, one person commented about, can you do a video on tree ferns? You don't want me to do a video on tree ferns. I really don't know that much about them. I mean, I know a couple, genera. That's about it. But I'm not an expert in that. I'm a palm and cycad guy, maybe a few other plants. But as you can see, I'm losing my voice here. This is probably my like 30th attempt at making this video without having to cut it. So I'm gonna hopefully this is fairly successful. Like I said, leave a comment down below if you have any questions, and I'll talk to everyone, see everyone later. Thanks for watching.